Hello, you wonderful people, and welcome to another episode of Super-Fanta-Fi. This being a show where I talk about TV shows of the supernatural, fantasy, and/or science fictional genre. For today's episode, I'm going to talk about the latest episode of The 100. A great episode. This episode did a fantastic job setting up what I was kind of already talking about before. When you get all these different groups together, all with their differencing opinions, because everyone had very different experiences over this time. Like, obviously, they're kind of waking up from their, 100-year sleep or whatever, so they've had their experience. They're kind of riding off the high of that experience of kind of like their little mutiny and takeover. Plus, Clark's had her experience. Bellamy and the others on the arc have had their experiences. Obviously, Octavia and the others have had theirs. And this episode really shows what happens when those differences of opinions and way of operating things kind of collide. Like, it's just one thing after another. It's just the way Clark lives set everything kind of in motion, and then meeting Bellamy and the others and them doing things their way. Like, obviously Bellamy wants to try and do this as he doesn't want to kill all those people, but if it means protecting the people he cares about, in this particular case, it turns out to be Clark, as well as making sure everyone else survives. He was okay with trying to make a place where everyone could cohabitate and live together, where then you had the whole situation down in the bunker. It's kind of like there is one crew mentality. So even there, like, you could always tell it's always going to be like one crew, bump them. If you're not part of one crew, you're the enemy. Like, Octavius had that mentality for like the past 6 years. They are the enemy because they are not one crew, especially after then it goes down. But obviously, get way ahead of myself, gotta break things down. We find out why Kane is in a pit. Apparently he stole medicine, but it turns out it was actually Abby. At first, because the way Abby was like, oh, I need it to function, I was like, oh, okay, because her condition came back or whatever, so she needs it. It's like, no, it probably started like that, but now it seems like she medicates just because she got addicted to it and that addiction is what sparked all this. And it seems interesting because Kane initially doesn't fight back, so he doesn't put up much of a fight. So he ends up winning ultimately, but you can tell by the look on his face and like the way he was very defensive the entire game. It was actually the other people killing each other, and he killed the final person, out of self-defense, but at the same time, it's like it crushed him because he didn't want to kill anyone. Because for him, it's like he blames himself because he's like, I let this all happen. Apparently, he talks about there being one particular year known as the Dark Year. Because we end up learning out from Bellamy, because Bellamy's like, okay, there's 1,200 people, and then like Octavia quickly cuts him off. It's like, no, 814. So roughly in the span of that 6 years, 300 plus people have died. A little less than 400 people have died. So that begs the question, like, is that all pit-related stuff? I mean, we know Octavia kind of knocked, like, some heads herself, killed quite a few people after those first few months and everything, but still, that's a lot of people to kind of cut through. But it's kind of interesting. Well, I know I'm kind of all over the place, so I do apologize. But when it comes to everything, Kane doesn't want things to kind of be a repeat, because literally what they're doing is exactly the same thing as the arc. It's like your mom was literally floated. Why? Because she had a second child, and that's what it's like. All these arbitrary rules, like, yes, like, you should have a system in place where it's like you don't do this and that, but it's like Octavia became this person. She became the Red Queen so she can get everyone together under one symbol, that being the one crew, and always looking out for each other. So it's like, to survive this time, they had to be like this. But Kane looks at it as like, the fact of the matter is, it's that same situation of, we talk about like, oh, everything we do is just surviving. It's like, it's like that's our justification for all the like terrible things that we do. It's like we could find another way. We just justify them like, oh, well, we're doing this just to survive. Like, memory, or like the whole thing was, we'll find our humanity after this. Like, that was kind of the whole thing, like even before the season. So it's like Kane is trying to be like that. This isn't the right way. The fact is, we're up here having this pit. We're making it into like killing each other into a sport. Yes, we committed crimes, but at the same time, it's like, we should do better than Ark. Don't literally make the same mistakes that Ark did. I mean, I don't know if Octavia actually even thought about it, but maybe subconsciously, without even realizing it, she created the very system that she grew up in. She just basically added a more barbaric element to it, which, I mean, in her mind, it's like that barbaricness is what kept things in line. It kept people from committing crimes because they know they would have to fight to the death. So it's like, I mean, to be fair, it still didn't stop. The fact is that, like 400 people died. Most like a crap ton of those probably related to the pit, but still, I don't know. It's just some interesting circumstance, and I do like the fact that Kane made a comparison to the arc, because I wouldn't have done that until he pointed. I was like, right, you can't help but see the similarities between that. So Kane was willing to die for his belief and everything, because he was like, we can't keep going on like this. He's telling Octavia she can turn back, and you could tell Indra, from the look on her face, is very sympathetic. It seemed like she's been helping out Kane and Abby, had Abby locked up because Abby would confess. And it's like the only way they were going to survive is if Kane won the match, but he wasn't going to because that would just be perpetuating this system. And he was like, I'd rather die than keep feeding into it. Like, hopefully maybe he thinks by his death, he can change Octavia's mind. But kind of Octavia's kind of closed her heart off because it's like, this is who I kind of need to be, this monster in a sense, you know, to be this lady. I mean, she's a young girl who's kind of pushed into this situation of like, you know, be this leader to make sure that their people survived, you know, and that's kind of all she's had to do for the past 6 years. So she went about it the best way, but it's like, but is that the best way? Is kind of what that comes down to, you know. So and the thing is, like I said, it's so interesting because you have all these clashing beliefs, because obviously Bellamy doesn't want to do this, but if he has to, he needs to protect the people he cares about. Sure, you have these happy everybody being reunited and everything, but it's under such like sad circumstances. You even had the whole situation kind of with Murphy and Raven, which Murphy's trying to be like, yeah, I'll pull the plug for you, because he knows it bothers Raven so much, because that's not an easy thing to do. Even if they're inmates or whatever the case may be, it's like, these are still people. Like I said, it's literally the Mount Weather situation all over again, and that's not an easy thing to live with. Like I said, we saw what happened to Clark, like Clark's reaction to that, you know. So, but you know, Murphy was like, let me be the one to do it. It's like, you know, you always have to sacrifice so much, Raven. It's kind of like my turn to kind of chip it. But when it came down to it, even Murphy couldn't do it, because it's like, because that would mean killing. Like I said, Murphy tries to act tough and everything, like, oh, he's this hardcore badass and stuff like that. But it's like, no, like, he's actually kind of like, he cares, even though he tries to pretend like he doesn't, but he does. Like, even that kind of shook him. Like, even though he acts like, oh, I'll do it, I'll be the one. It's like, even he couldn't do it in the end. So, and obviously, Charmaine tried to kill them by opening the air bay doors, basically suck up all the oxygen. But their idea was wake everyone up. That way they won't be able to kill Raven and Murphy without killing their own people. So, at least Charmaine's not, I mean, obviously she cares about her people, like, and that's what this all comes down to. That's what this is all heading into, people versus people. Because obviously when it's all said and done, the dude, like, a war is basically brewing between both sides, because Charmaine got the upper hand. Like I said, it's just that situation of, it's hard to say if they would have been who they are. I mean, I think legitimately they were waiting for an excuse to kind of take control anyway, because we saw them kind of kill all the people on the Elegas you know, and take control. I mean, to be fair, we don't know the entire circumstances. But I mean, it seems like Charmaine isn't like the best person, because Raven looked into her file. Apparently, she was a decorated SEAL. She was decorated 3 times. Obviously, the whole Navy SEAL situation. And it turns out she was actually a terrorist. She did a lot of bombings and shit like that, which is kind of like, okay, that doesn't seem good. Not unless it's just kind of like one of those things where it's like, well, there's one side of the story. Like, I mean, it's hard to say where Charmaine stands in that whole situation, whether she's actually a good guy or not. Like, that's kind of hard to say. I'm sure, I mean, obviously, she might be kind of in a similar situation as Octavia, and the rest of them is like, you kind of have to do some bad stuff if it means surviving, you know? So, because, I mean, to be fair, she's leading a group of inmates, and so it's kind of like she probably has to put up a bigger front. She has to kind of be a little more cutthroat and heartless if she means to live and survive, because it's like, especially one of the dudes is ready to take her out at any moment in time. He even had one of his dudes, he killed the dude that she kind of like has to constantly talk to. That dude ended up killing the other dude. But that dude was like, oh, we're loyal to you, ready to strike whenever you want to. And he's just waiting for his opportunity. And just killed the dude because it's like, well, you screwed everything up. Not messing with her plan, but it most likely made his plans have to be pushed back further, you know, under these circumstances. So he's like, oh, well, you got like 283 more people up there anyway. And so she realizes that she can't 100% trust him. That the moment he gets a chance, he'll put a bullet in her head too. Then you also have Octavia blaming Bellamy, saying that this was all his fault. She put her trust in him. But he had everything in control, and like, he was taking contingencies, but it's kind of like, to be fair, things would have ended up this way anyway. But now it's like Charmaine and her group are all, the people of Elegas are planning on taking, well, Eden, that spot 100% their own. Is like, you can stay on the outskirts, won't be any problem, but you know, you come that way now, you know, then there's going to be trouble. But now everything's kind of being where it is. There's no, I mean, because even like the dude who, the smart, I keep blanking on his name, but the one who's kind of like having the whole like hacker off with Raven, It's also interesting too because even he was like, yeah, she might be a coward, but she's an alive coward, which is kind of like, oh, It's also interesting that she calls Raven a coward, like for not pulling a trigger on your people. It's like you could be like, oh, like you probably think of it as cowardice. It's like, no, I think it's just her being like, I don't want to kill a whole bunch of people no matter what the circumstances are, even if you're strangers. Maybe that says that she's actually a good person because she doesn't want to just randomly start killing random people. Which once again, like I said, it's not like Charmaine went into this. It's like, hey, we'll get Abby. Fine, we have to take Kane too because he's a part of this package deal. But things are not going to go well for them. Obviously, they're going back up, and now we have Murphy and Raven being used as hostages. Because the thing is, Raven's kind of the tech person too, so it's kind of like if she dies, like this team's kind of screwed. So we might see a situation where it's like Murphy offers himself up and gets killed, or maybe they kill Raven just to spite Murphy, even though he tries to offer himself up. It could be like, I mean, hey, you never know. This is a season where it seems like easily. I mean, no one's really safe in this show. Like, look at Thelonious. Thelonious died like what, last episode? So it's not last episode, but the episode before last. Like, so you can't really say for sure that like a lot of these characters are safe because this could be the moment in time, you know. So it's kind of sad that things played out the way they are because now like all these happy reunions are cut so short, you know, because Raven and Murphy. Excuse me, just like they're super happy. It's like, oh my, Clark's alive, and Murphy's like, I'm supposed to be the cockroach. Like I said, in this circumstance, there are a lot of hostages on this side. You got Abby, Kane, the whole situation with Raven and Murphy. It's interesting too because you even have Octavia because Abby tries to offer herself over, but then you have like Octavia calling her a traitor. I guess it's because it's like, no, we're supposed to be in this together. Even though it is Abby trying to be selfless, it's like, no, we act as one crew. We look out for one crew. But maybe in Octavia's mind, it's like, oh, you're just looking out for yourself, you know, just because. Probably on some level, because she knows Kane didn't steal the medicine, so she probably knows on some level it probably was Abby, so there's that. Which obviously that's going to be an element continuing forward too, Abby's whole pill thing. It's like, oh, they wanted a doctor. Sadly for them, they got a doctor with addiction who has her own issues and stuff like that. It's also interesting because you're all forgetting her daughter is down there. So Abby might just say, fuck it, I don't care. I'll die because you kill my daughter. But it's like, well, they have Kane, so they have an extra hostage. So that's that whole situation. Luckily, Raven kind of locked the weapons. Potentially, I don't know. I mean, you might find out it was actually a home dude that locked the weapons and just pretending like Raven did it just for the purpose of trying to keep all those people, because obviously he doesn't side with all of this. He's like the most rational amongst them. Like, he's not the one that's all gung-ho about this. Like, I'm sure he's going to be one of the people you could reach out to potentially for wanting peace. But once again, it's that situation of so many different people clashing. Like I said, we still don't really 100%, like, we saw a little bit of where Clark stands, where it's like, obviously she killed like those first 2 or 3 dudes, but it's like, we still don't know 100% of how she's going to deal with this whole situation. Will she side more with Octavia in this whole war situation? Obviously, Bellamy's not going to want that. Maybe he'll kind of want to search for more peaceful options. Even, I mean, I'm sure Kane's going to try and talk about things, trying to find a balance there. We'll see. But Octavia's going to want blood because it's like, no. They want, once again, they are enemy to one crew. We are one crew. If you are not part of one crew, you are the enemy. So it's kind of like that land will belong to one crew. And then there's also been a situation like, well, she's going to be happy about Bellamy as well as the others from. Because there's also, let's not forget the whole Echo situation, because, you know, Bellamy's like, oh, don't worry, we'll talk to Octavia. Octavia is not the same person she was at that time, so she might not be in a forgiving mood for Echo. I mean, to be fair, everyone's given her opportunity, even people who've crossed her in the past, so it might be like, hey, you know, I mean, Bellamy forgave Echo, but that was over a course of years, and, you know, Octavia seeing her again after all the time might not be inclined to just be like, oh, yeah, we're good. So ultimately, we'll see. Maybe she'll kind of make Echo, you know, prove herself or something. I don't know. We'll have to see. All of this is exactly the one reason why Monty didn't want to come back, because he wanted to avoid all of this. So kind of having to be the people again. So like I said, going forward, I'm curious to see how this all plays out. Obviously, they have like a large number themselves. There's at least, like, the way the dude kind of put it is like there's at least 1,500 people here, kind of the last people on Earth. And whatever numbers Charmaine has, her group, smaller group, and then there's also like the hundreds they have up there, plus they've got all the tech too, so that kind of makes the fight a lot harder on one crew and the others. What's interesting too is there's a whole Elegant situation that Raven was looking into. She can find info on 1 and 2 and 4, but there's stuff locked off about 3. So that begs the question, like, what happened to it? Does that mean there are or even more people out there we have to be worried about? Or is, because that kind of screams like, that seems like that's something waiting just to pop back up of like, oh, they're out there waiting. Like there's maybe group 4, Elegance 4, it's a group that's like, oh, we're handling stuff. We're kind of like the ones going forward. Maybe they got in contact with the group that took over Elegance 3 and they have even more numbers waiting that we just don't know about with a lot more tech and stuff like that. So like I said, it's definitely going to be interesting going forward with this whole situation as war is about to break out. No matter what happens, I mean, with the way, especially where Earth is now in this state, like it's always going to be a fight for survival. And it's like they had to fight to get to where they are. So much had to be sacrificed to get where they are. So that's extra motivation, at least in like one crew's case of like why Octavia will probably never back down, because it's like so much shit had to be sacrificed, so many lives given for just the bunker to get to the bunker alone. So many that died in prime fire, as well as those who had to survive those like 6 long years and stuff. So it's a complicated road back to war again, because it's like that's kind of sad. I mean, and I'm sure that's the argument also Kane's making. It's like every step of the way when it came to colonizing on Earth, Sky Crew and the Grounders, like it has always been a constant war with somebody. There's always battling, there's always fights, and it's just after all these years, it's just kind of like there has to be another way. And whether there will be one or they can find one, we'll have to wait and see. I kind of feel like under these circumstances, there might not be one, but hey, who knows? I have to wait to see how everything kind of plays out. So I'm very interested to see what goes down in the next episode. What's also interesting to me too was the look on everybody's face when they saw Clark. To be fair, I guess it's because it's like they knew Clark was going to still be there. So there's that. But it's like, yo, Juanita. It's like, let's not forget she still got that title, which also kind of goes off in my brain like, yeah, that also because I just thought about that too. Let's not forget, like, there's the whole like, oh yeah, like she's the Red Queen and everything, but Clark is a Nightblood, so is Maddie. So technically they could be, they have the rights, they kind of have the right to the throne. So that could be a problem for Octavia later on. Potentially, I don't know if they'll turn into something, but if she wanted to, like, I think Clark could potentially wrestle the throne from her essentially and kind of take control. Obviously, it's a little bit different. I don't know, because I was kind of one of like, Gaia's situations is like, well, now there's like a Nightblood left, and it's Juanita too, so that's gonna like bolster her, even more. So like I said, it's just kind of interesting. I was kind of thinking about that at the last minute, and I'd forgotten, because it's like, because I noticed that everyone's looking at it like, oh, it's like, oh, well, of course they would, because everyone knows who Clark is. She's got just as much of a reputation as Octavia had as Skyripper, so. Like I said, I'm very interested to see what the next episode has in store for us with all of that, whether even that turns into something or not, but we'll see. But really, that's all I want to talk about in this episode. Till the next time we meet, be happy, be safe, live life to the fullest, and enjoy it. Good day and goodbye.